All right, let's get right into this explainer. We're going to connect some pretty surprising dots, starting with the chaos at an aid site in Gaza, jumping to a mind-blowing high-tech missile strike, and ending with a new global power dynamic that is rewriting the rules of war, like right now, as we speak.
So we have to start on the ground with this really chilling quote from Dave McIntosh. He's a former British Special Forces soldier who was working as a security site manager in Gaza. And what he saw, well, he just calls it straight-up war crimes. It's a side of this conflict that is raw, it's brutal, and honestly, it sets the stage for everything else we're about to talk about.
23 minutes. Just think about that number. According to one forensic analysis, that was the average amount of time an aid distribution site was even allowed to stay open. Can you imagine the sheer desperation? You have people who've been starving for days and they get less than half an hour to get food. Witnesses literally compared it to the Squid Game, a deadly race for survival where a green light means go and a red light means it's all over.
And this is where the human cost just hits you like a ton of bricks. McIntosh documented this specific incident. A 12-year-old boy shot by a sniper right near the aid site. He collapsed and just bled out for 30 minutes. An internal report was apparently filed, calling it what it was, murder, but absolutely nothing happened. It's just one story, but it captures the grim reality on the ground. A reality that, as you'll see, is deeply connected to a much larger battlefield.
Okay, so here's where things get really interesting. We're about to pivot hard, from that scene of low-tech, human desperation, to a stunning display of high-tech warfare that seems to have changed the entire game, almost overnight. We're going from the ground straight up into the skies. 300. According to a pretty detailed military analysis, that's how many Khaibar Shekan ballistic missiles Iran allegedly launched in one single coordinated wave. The reported target? The IDF Northern Command. And the alleged result? Was staggering. The command infrastructure of 5 Israeli brigades completely destroyed, forcing Israel to ask for a ceasefire.
So that immediately makes you wonder, right? How in the world did that happen? I mean, Israel has the Iron Dome, it's got David's Sling, the Arrow system. We're talking a multi-billion-dollar, multi-layered shield that's supposed to be one of the best on the planet. How could a volley of missiles on that scale possibly get through?
Well, the strategy wasn't about trying to build a smarter missile. It was simpler and way more brutal. It was about overwhelming the system with pure numbers. It's called a saturation attack. See, a defensive shield only has so many interceptors it can fire at once. So if you launch more missiles than it has interceptors, the shield is just defeated by basic math.
The backstory of how Iran even got this capability is like something out of a spy movie. Analysts say it all started back in 2011, when Iran managed to capture a highly sophisticated American RQ-170 stealth drone, completely intact. They then spent the next decade meticulously taking it apart and reverse engineering its technology. And the big prize? They learned how to build guidance systems that don't need GPS. The result is a missile that is incredibly resistant to electronic jamming, which, is a huge part of Western military strategy.
So, and this is the crucial point, this didn't just happen in a vacuum. Iran's massive technological leap is actually part of a much bigger story, the rise of a new, deeply interconnected axis of power.
Top U.S. commanders have a specific name for this. They're calling it a transactional symbiosis. It's this new strategic alliance where China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran are all actively helping each other out. They're covering each other's weaknesses and building a kind of collective strength that's aimed squarely at challenging the West.
And you can see how this creates what some are calling an authoritarian collusion. It's a feedback loop. China sends Russia the high-tech parts it needs to rebuild its military. North Korea and Iran send Russia the cheap munitions and drones it needs for the war in Ukraine. And then, in return, Russia and China share their advanced submarine, missile, and air defense tech back with Iran and North Korea. It's a whole system designed to get around sanctions and level up everyone's military power, fast.
So this new global alignment, it's creating intense pressure all over the world. And that pressure is starting to cause things to crack, opening up new fronts in some very unpredictable places. We're seeing these flashpoints pop up both inside of nations and between them.
For example, you just have to look inside Israel itself. This quote is from an ultra-Orthodox Jewish protester in Jerusalem. His group, the Neturei Karta, is anti-Zionist. They were out there protesting the very existence of the State of Israel, even burning the Israeli flag. For them, this whole thing is theological. They believe a Jewish state is actually forbidden before the Messiah comes. It's this deep internal fracture that a lot of people just don't see.
And at the exact same time, a new and, frankly, incredibly dangerous external front has just been ripped wide open. A major red line has been crossed.
So check this out. Israel allegedly struck the port of Anzali in Iran. Now, this is not just any old port. It's on the Caspian Sea, which Russia basically considers its private lake. And it's the main hub for all the Russia-Iran trade that's designed to get around Western sanctions. So by hitting Anzali, Israel struck directly at Russia's strategic and economic interests, and that is a line that even the United States has been careful not to cross.
Moscow's reaction was, as you'd expect, immediate and ice cold. This statement from their foreign ministry isn't subtle at all. It is a direct, public warning that this act will be remembered and there are absolutely going to be consequences.
And this is where it could all be heading. This one single strike could be the thing that finally pushes Iran to sign a mutual defense treaty with Russia, something Tehran has actually rejected before. And if that happens, Iran could fall under Russia's nuclear umbrella, which would fundamentally and probably permanently change the entire strategic map of the Middle East.
So, from the visceral suffering on the streets of Gaza, to a huge technological leap in missile warfare, to the hardening of a new global axis and the crossing of dangerous new red lines, all of these events are pointing to one single, unavoidable conclusion. A new reality is here. Which leaves us with this last, critical question. The battlefield is changing, the alliances have shifted, the technologies have completely evolved. So, are the old rules of deterrence, of great power competition, the very principles that have kept the world in some kind of balance for decades, are they now totally obsolete? That is the deeply unsettling question that this new era is forcing all of us to answer.